In the heart of the ancient kingdom of Valdoria, the sun rose over towering castles and sprawling forests, casting golden light upon cobblestone streets bustling with merchants, farmers, and townsfolk. The aroma of freshly baked bread mingled with the scent of smoke from the blacksmith's forges. Birds chirped cheerfully, unaware of the political tensions that simmered beneath the kingdom's idyllic exterior. Young Aric, a humble blacksmith's apprentice with hands calloused from work and dreams larger than the mountains surrounding the valley, carried buckets of water to the forges, his mind wandering far beyond the small town of Valdoria. Aric often paused to watch travelers arrive from distant lands, their colorful cloaks and exotic trinkets sparking his imagination. Tales of heroes, battles, and enchanted relics whispered through the marketplace like wind through the trees, igniting a fire within his young heart. His father, a stern yet loving blacksmith, often reminded him, "Dreams are good, Aric, but don't let them distract from duty." Yet duty alone could not quell the longing to see what lay beyond the kingdom walls. Valdoria, though seemingly peaceful, was fraught with secrets. Noble houses whispered in dark corridors, plotting betrayal and claiming lands that were not theirs. Strange occurrences haunted the outskirts of the kingdom. Villages reported sightings of shadowy figures, and travelers spoke of enchanted forests that moved under the moonlight. The royal court, draped in finery and intrigue, was unaware of the mounting threats from both within and beyond its borders. On this fateful morning, Aric's routine changed. A messenger arrived, breathless and muddy from a long journey, bearing a scroll with the royal seal. The contents would determine not only Aric's destiny, but also the fate of the kingdom. The king sought a hero, someone courageous and pure of heart, to undertake a mission of great peril, to retrieve a sacred artifact hidden deep within the Forest of Shadows, an item said to hold the power to protect Valdoria from impending doom. Many had attempted the quest, but none returned. Despite his youth and inexperience, Aric felt a stirring within, a call he could not ignore. He remembered the old tales his grandmother used to tell him by the fireside, of knights and heroes who rose from humble beginnings to shape history. Could he be that hero? The thought alone sent shivers down his spine. With a final glance at the forge where he had spent countless hours, he nodded to himself. This was the moment he had been waiting for. As Aric prepared for the journey, he encountered allies who had become crucial to his quest. Mira, a healer with knowledge of ancient herbs and protective charms, Braun, a former soldier seeking redemption, and Celine, a scholar versed in the lore of Valdoria's mystical past. Together, they formed a fellowship bound not only by necessity, but by shared courage and loyalty. Each step they took toward the Forest of Shadows was met with challenges, treacherous terrain, cunning bandits, and beasts that seemed drawn from the very myths Aric had cherished as a boy. The journey tested Aric in ways he had never imagined. He learned to trust in his instincts, to face fear without hesitation, and to understand the strength found in friendship and unity. Alongside the trials of the external world, Aric faced the inner challenge of self-doubt. Could he rise to the expectations placed upon him? Could a blacksmith's apprentice truly become the savior of Valdoria? By the end of this first chapter, Aric stood at the edge of the Forest of Shadows, the sun dipping low, casting long shadows across the land. Behind him lay the comforts of home and the familiar life of Valdoria. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and the promise of adventure. His heart pounded not with fear alone, but with anticipation, the thrill of stepping into a story larger than life, a story that would be told for generations to come. Aric took a deep breath, tightened his grip on the sword gifted by Sir Elric, and stepped forward, leaving the known world behind. The legend of Aric, the blacksmith-turned-hero, had begun. The Forest of Shadows stretched endlessly, a dense labyrinth of towering trees and tangled undergrowth. Mist clung to the ground like a living entity, curling around roots and rocks, as if trying to obscure the path ahead. Aric's heart raced, not from fear alone, but from the weight of responsibility that now rested upon his shoulders. Every step forward echoed with uncertainty, each rustle in the foliage a potential threat. He gripped the hilt of his sword tighter, aware that danger lurked not only in the shadows of the trees, but also within the unknown corners of his own mind. Mira led the group with careful precision, her knowledge of herbs and mystical markers guiding them through paths that seemed invisible to ordinary eyes. She paused occasionally, examining strange symbols carved into bark or small arrangements of stones that hinted at ancient rituals. "These markings," she whispered, "are warnings. We must tread lightly. The forest tests those who enter with impure intent or fear in their hearts." Braun, the former soldier, walked ahead, scanning for threats with trained eyes. Every snap of a twig or distant howl made him halt, alerting the others. His stoic demeanor concealed the anxiety he felt about the perils that lay ahead. Though experienced in battle, he had never faced creatures of myth or navigated a forest said to be alive with magic. He reminded himself that courage was not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. Celine, the scholar, kept a journal, noting every peculiar phenomenon. Her meticulous observations revealed subtle changes in light, the patterns of animal movements, and the faint hum of energy that seemed to pulse through the trees. "The artifact we seek is not merely hidden," she said thoughtfully. "It is protected. Valdoria's ancestors ensured that only those with heart, mind, and courage aligned can approach it." As the fellowship delved deeper, they encountered the first true challenge, a river that shimmered with an unnatural silver glow. The water flowed quickly, and stepping in without caution could sweep them away. Aric's determination surged. He remembered his father's words about duty and responsibility. Using ropes and teamwork, they carefully crossed, each member supporting the other, forging bonds strengthened by shared risk. Suddenly, shadows moved among the trees. Figures cloaked in darkness appeared, their eyes glinting like embers in the gloom. The group froze. Whispers filled the air, unintelligible but filled with malice. Aric felt fear clutch at his chest, yet he reminded himself that hesitation could be fatal. Drawing his sword, he stepped forward, not recklessly, but with focus. Mira chanted softly, invoking protective charms, while Braun positioned himself defensively, anticipating attack. The shadows receded for the moment, leaving an eerie silence, but the warning was clear. The forest itself was alive and aware of their presence. Days turned into nights. The adventurers endured hunger, fatigue, and the psychological strain of isolation. Each challenge demanded ingenuity and cooperation. Aric discovered resourcefulness he did not know he possessed, fashioning tools from branches and stones, learning to interpret subtle signs of the forest, and listening to the rhythms of nature to anticipate threats. During one night, while the others slept, Aric wandered to a clearing bathed in moonlight. He found an ancient statue of a guardian deity, moss-covered but majestic, its eyes seeming to follow him. A voice whispered within his mind, not audible, but undeniable. "Only those who embrace both courage and humility may proceed." Aric knelt, understanding that his journey was as much about internal growth as the external quest. Mira joined him silently, placing a hand on his shoulder. "The forest chooses its worthy," she said softly. "And it seems you are beginning to understand what it requires." Braun and Celine soon joined, and together they camped beneath the canopy, finding solace in companionship and shared purpose. The fellowship encountered enchanted beasts, wolves with eyes of flame, deer that vanished when approached, and birds that mimicked human voices, speaking riddles that tested both intelligence and resolve. These trials, though terrifying, honed their skills, deepened their trust in one another, and strengthened their resolve to retrieve the sacred artifact. As Chapter 2 draws to a close, the group stands before a massive stone archway, engraved with ancient runes and pulsing with ethereal light. Beyond it lies the final stretch to the artifact's resting place. Aric feels the enormity of the journey, the weight of destiny pressing upon him, and the unity of his companions filling him with courage. The next steps will determine whether they can overcome both the forest's mystical trials and the darker forces that covet the artifact for evil purposes. The night is quiet, but the tension is palpable. Tomorrow, the real test begins. Aric looks to his companions, seeing the same determination mirrored in their eyes. Together, they step toward the archway, ready to face whatever awaits on the other side. The legend of Aric, the blacksmith-turned-hero, continues to unfold with every heartbeat and every courageous step into the unknown. Dawn broke with a muted glow, filtering through the dense canopy of the forest of shadows. Aric awoke to the soft whispers of leaves, carrying a sense of anticipation that hung heavy in the morning air. The trials they had faced so far were only prelude to the challenges that awaited beyond the ancient stone archway. Every member of the fellowship felt it. The culmination of their journey was near, yet peril loomed closer with each step. Mira adjusted her satchel, ensuring the mystical charms remained secure, their protective enchantments active. The path ahead, she said, is more than a test of strength. It is a test of heart and unity. Alone, none of us could survive what lies beyond. Bronn nodded solemnly, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. His years of combat had taught him vigilance, but even he sensed the forest's growing power, as if it breathed and watched them with a conscious will. Selene, ever meticulous, consulted her notes. Patterns of light, shadow, and energy pulses indicated a convergence point just beyond the archway. Legends spoke of guardians, she said, but they were always described as more than creatures. They are trials incarnate. We must combine our wisdom, skill, and courage to proceed. As they stepped through the archway, a sudden gust of wind swept past, carrying whispers that seemed almost intelligible. Shapes formed in the mist, ethereal figures of warriors, scholars, and ancient beings who once protected the forest. They did not attack but observed, their eyes measuring the intent of each adventurer. Aric felt a tremor of doubt but remembered his father's teachings. Courage is forged in the crucible of fear. The first true trial emerged. A chasm stretched infinitely before them, its bottom obscured by rolling fog. The only path across was a series of narrow, floating stones, each hovering precariously. One misstep would plunge them into the unknown. Bracing himself, Aric led, testing each stone carefully. Mira and Selene followed, using chance and careful observation to maintain balance, while Bronn secured ropes to ensure safety. Step by step, they crossed, their unity preventing catastrophe and reinforcing the strength of their fellowship. Once across, they encountered a clearing dominated by a crystalline lake, its waters reflecting not the sky, but visions of their past, their fears, and their hidden desires. Each adventurer was forced to confront personal trials. Aric saw his moments of doubt and guilt. Mira glimpsed the consequences of misused power. Bronn faced regrets of battles past, and Selene confronted the arrogance of intellect untempered by empathy. To proceed, they had to acknowledge their weaknesses and accept them as part of their growth. The final trial was a guardian of immense presence, neither fully corporeal nor completely spectral. Its voice resonated in their minds. Only those who are united, steadfast, and pure of purpose may claim the artifact. Combat was inevitable. However, brute force alone would not suffice. Strategy, trust, and unity became their weapons. Aric coordinated their movements. Mira cast protective spells, Bronn engaged with precision, and Selene deciphered the Guardian's patterns. Together, they overcame the Guardian, not by destruction, but by proving their worth through collaboration and courage. Finally, they arrived at the artifact's resting place, a pedestal carved from the heart of the oldest tree in the forest, pulsing with luminous energy. As Aric approached, he felt the weight of destiny settle upon him. Touching the artifact, he sensed the accumulated wisdom, power, and history of Valdoria flowing through him. The forest seemed to exhale, acknowledging their triumph. Yet, even in victory, the Fellowship remained vigilant. They understood that the artifact, while now in their hands, would draw attention from those who sought to exploit it for nefarious purposes. Their journey would continue beyond the forest, into realms where wisdom, courage, and unity would be tested further. As the sun rose fully, dispersing the remaining mist, Aric and his companions looked at one another with newfound respect and understanding. Their trials had not only strengthened their abilities, but also forged bonds unbreakable by fear or temptation. With the artifact secured, the legend of Aric and his fellowship would echo through time, a tale of courage, wisdom, and the power of unity against darkness. Chapter 3 closed with the sense that every ending is but a beginning, and the forest, once a harbinger of trials, now seemed to watch over them with quiet approval. Their hearts were emboldened, their minds enlightened, and their spirits intertwined, ready for the challenges that awaited in the wide, uncertain world beyond.